In the previous screencast, I talked to you guys about. Actually, hold on, I'm going to plug in my mic. Okay, back again. So, I talked to you folks about the concept of chemical bonds. And what's most important here is that chemical bonds exist between two or more atoms. And the reason why atoms will bond together is that it puts them at a lower energy state. And if you think about all phenomena that exist in the world, it's all about settling down to its most stable state. And in the case of chemicals, it's all about the lowest energy being the most stable state. So there are many types of chemical bonds that exist. So in fact, if we, let's see, how can I show this? I think I'm going to see if I can shrink this. Can I make you smaller? I sure can. Whee! Okay, so I have, overall, there are two fundamental groups of chemical bonds. So let me square this up and have a couple of green arrows cascading from this. The first type is something that we're actually not going to cover for a little bit of time, and those are called intermolecular bonds. And it's important for you to focus in on that prefix to intermolecular and think of this very much like the same prefix associated with sports, right? We have interscholastic sports versus intramural sports. And when we think about interscholastic sports, it means there are contests that are between two separate schools. Okay? So that's important because if we come over here, we have a set of bonds called intramolecular forces, or intramolecular bonds. And again, if we use this sports analogy thing, when you have an intramural sport, these are sports that happen within the school. And you'll see that's going to make a huge difference in terms of your understanding. Intra versus inter. Okay? Because inter is in between or among, and intra is within or inside. Okay, so there are three different types of intermolecular bonds. And the first one over here is going to be called, it's the weakest of them. They're called dispersion forces. And I'm not going to go into any detail about these. I'm just giving you the vocabulary now so that it'll be somewhat familiar to you later on. And then another, which is a little bit stronger, they're called dipole forces. Okay, and these would be the kinds of things that would attract one molecule to another molecule, but not holding together the atoms inside of a molecule. And then lastly, we have the strongest of these intermolecular bonds, and they're called hydrogen bonds. And those are the bonds that actually exist among water molecules and allow for surface tension, capillarity, as well as a whole bunch of properties associated with water that are critical for life on Earth. All right, let's scooch over to the intramolecular bonds. Every single intramolecular bond is going to be stronger than any of these intermolecular bonds. Keep that in mind. So overall, intermolecular bonds are relatively weak when compared to intramolecular bonds. And let's see, what color am I using? Black. There are only two intramolecular bonds, and I already talked to you last night about the first one, and those are the ionic bonds. And ionic bonds are about transferring electrons between two atoms. Whereas covalent bonds, there we go, covalent bonds are about not transferring, but sharing electrons between two or more atoms. Okay? All right, there you have it. That's sort of the overview of the types of chemical bonds that we're looking at that exist. And move on to the next screencast, which is one where I'm going to be talking about names and formulas for some simple ionic compounds. So we're going to focus in on these dudes right here. See ya.